I thank the Speaker. I came to the floor this week in America. I said you should be concerned about what Washington is about to do. Last night I came to the floor and I said you should be alarmed about what Washington is doing because lack of deliberation. Today I come and say, America, you should be outraged about what Washington is about to do because Washington is not listening to you. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, our offices have been hearing phone calls 10 to 1, 100 to 1 against this proposal. But Washington is not listening. They are going ahead with the proposal as well. There is a problem. We recognize the problem. We must work on it now. But we should not go for the solution to that problem to the same people who have brought that problem to us. We should not go to the administration who has brought this problem to us through their actions in the past. The Federal Reserve, with their roller coaster interest rates from 2001 to 2004, 6% to 1% down, and then 04 to 07, 1 to 5% up. Bubbles and bursts from the Fed and their false promises with Bear Stearns and AIG and GSEs. Nor should we turn to the Democrat leadership that has signed on to this bill. That Democrat leadership who has given us CRAs in the past that has led to the meltdown in the subprime market. Nor should we turn to the Democrat leadership who has blocked reform in the past to these GSEs and unbelievably say they will block any reform in the future to the GSEs. No, the stakes are too high to turn back to those who have brought us the problem in the first place. We should look for new solutions, and there are solutions. But I will close on this, Mr. Speaker. The noted University of Chicago economist Robert Schimmer tells us that the U.S. has long been a beacon of free markets in the world. When economic conditions turn sour in Argentina or Indonesia, we give very clear instructions on what to do. Balance the budget, cut government employment, maintain free trade and the rule of law, and don't prop up failing enterprises. Those approaches by the U.S. are correct. But when the U.S. ignores its own advice in this situation, it reduces our credibility in the future. Rewriting the rules of the game at this stage will therefore have serious ramifications not only for the people in this country, but for the future of the globe. The social cost is far, far greater than any $700 billion.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself 30 seconds to correct
recognized.
An egregious misrepresentation of history. The gentleman just said that the Democratic leadership, he said the Democrat leadership. I wouldn't want to misquote his adjective. He said the Democrat leadership, a point of great rhetorical significance to the large-minded on the other side, says that the Democrats blocked GSE reform. The Republicans controlled this Congress from 1995 to 2006. No bill passing GSE reform went through. The Democrats took over in 2007. Within a couple of months, this House, 4 months, this House passed the GSE. I yield myself another 30 seconds.
Recognized.
The House passed the GSE reform that the Bush administration requested. We then asked the Secretary of the Treasury to put that into the stimulus. He said no. The Senate then did it in July, and the bill became law. So 12 years of Republican rule, zero action on GSE reform, a year and a half of the Democrats being in power, and GSE reform was passed.
Will the gentleman yield on those?
The objection so ordered.
Madam Speaker, almost 2 weeks ago, Secretary Henry Paulson came to this Congress requesting $700 billion of taxpayer money for his friends and former colleagues on Wall Street. The former chairman of the investment bank of Goldman Sachs also asked this Congress to pass a law ensuring that his actions were non-reviewable and committed to agency discretion and may not be reviewed by any court of law or any administrative agency. The founders of this great nation set up an ingenious system of government to ensure that power was not disproportionately given to any one individual. The goal was to avoid tyranny at all costs. But Secretary Paulson most likely skipped class that day and was hoping that we had as well. Many wonder how such a poorly constructed piece of legislation could even come to the Congress in the first place, and I wonder how our President approved this as well. By demanding this bailout money, the administration attempted to circumvent the legislative process. Moreover, the administration continues to insist that their way is the only way to avoid an imminent crisis. And perhaps most stunning is that the administration officials that are responsible for protecting American taxpayers and our free market system were asleep at the switch. SEC Chairman Chris Cox recently admitted his culpability in this matter, and amazingly, the Secretary of the Treasury recently admitted he had seen this crisis coming for almost a year and just now has come to our Congress. Such large-scale government interference in our market ensures the correction process will take much longer. And what would help toward long-term stability is an injection of private capital into our economy. We need to lower tax rates on capital gains and corporate income, allowing people to invest more of their money and relieving American companies from one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. Now, the Democrats didn't care to address the capital gain tax rate issue, and in fact their response to the administration's bailout plan was just as bad. An additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman is recognized.
15 seconds.
For 15 seconds.
Was just as bad. I can tell you that an overwhelming majority of my constituents have called and emailed and written to my office stating their outright opposition to any sort of bailout. The American taxpayer deserves better than what we're getting here today, and we must not sacrifice long-term freedom for short-term financial gain.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself 15 seconds. I know this bill came out on page 58. The gentleman was right to object to the provision in the original bill sent to us by the Secretary exempting him from judicial review. We have disexempted him. If members will look at page 58, he is now subject to appropriate judicial review.
Beside the point. I will vote no reluctantly, hoping I am wrong, but fearing that I am right.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Alabama.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gomer.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, we've had heard a number of comments about we've just got to bite the bullet and do this. We heard the same things about let's bail out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We've got to take this one step. And then we heard from the former chairman of the FDIC, guys, you don't realize if you do this, you are going to start the dominoes falling. People have talked about this precipice. Making this vote, passing this bill is jumping into the precipice because next we got to come bail out the community banks that are doing just fine. If we would allow the banks to value these mortgage-based securities at the very value Paulson wants to take taxpayer money and buy them, they'd be okay. Washington Mutual wouldn't have failed. We hear about, we did the right thing with Chrysler, New York. Those were loans. This is putting the government in the position of buying all these things. And as the FDIC former chair said, when the federal government buys them, they immediately become worth less. That's the way it is. That's the way it will be. And nobody seems to ask, who is it that's going to manage these assets? I've been asking. And finally, the answer I got was, well, of course, we're going to have to outsource that. You're going to outsource it to the very people that caused the problem. We're going to give them billions for assets they've mismanaged, and then we're going to hire them to manage those assets. Please don't betray this nation's great history. The committees used to do good work and ferret this stuff out. They haven't been allowed to do their work, or they would have done a better job. Let the committees do the work. Let's get a better bill and save America from Congress hurting in it by jumping off into this precipice. I yield.